friends, I'm Emily from Homemade Emily Jane. Today I'm going to teach you exactly how to make the Economy Quilt Block. If you want written instructions or to see these steps all spelled out for you, you're in luck. Check out the description below for a link to the blog post that includes this whole tutorial. You'll also find in that blog post links to quilt patterns that feature the Economy Quilt Block. So let's get started. Before we begin, you'll want to press and starch your fabrics. I personally love using Best Press in a spritzing spray bottle like this one, and then I'll iron them to make the Best Press dried, and it'll crisp up the fabrics nice so that they don't stretch on the bias, which is really important since the Economy Quilt Block does include sewing on the bias. So now I have my squares of fabric all cut, but meet me over at the cutting mat and I'll tell you what to do here. In order to make one economy block, you will need a set of 5 different squares. One square, the center square on this example, will be 4.5 inches. And then you'll have 2 squares that are each 3 3/4 inches, and you can tell the size for the second square by laying the first square on top, and you'll see we have some overage on both sides on a diagonal. We'll end up cutting these squares on the diagonal and sewing them on. And then you'll need 2 squares that are each 5 inches. This is the third layer of triangles around the edge. So we'll sew these together first, and then we'll sew this white fabric on as well. So before we get started sewing, we will go ahead and cut the 2 sets of 2 squares on a diagonal, but we will keep our center square as a square. So now that our squares are cut on the diagonal, we'll begin by sewing these 2 edges together, and then we'll go ahead and sew more, and then we'll sew these ones. So this gives you an idea of the steps in order of this process so that you can follow along. So the first seams that we'll sew are the 2 that are across from each other onto the square. What you'll want to do is make sure that you have even overage on both sides, and you can do that by marking the middle of your triangle and marking the middle of your square, or you can just eyeball it. You'll have at least 1/4 inch on each side of the edge. Once you have sewn the 2 first corners, you'll go ahead and press your seams open like they are here, and then what is really helpful to do is actually to trim off these dog ears. So I'll take my ruler and my rotary cutter and just trim off the ears so that we have a nice flat side on both of these. So now we've got these 2 corners done. We'll go ahead and use that same fabric on the opposite 2 edges and repeat the steps of sewing a 1/4 inch seam and then pressing them open. Now you'll see those 2 seams are sewn and pressed open, and we do have some dog ears on all 4 corners now to trim off. So I'll go ahead and grab a square ruler that is slightly larger than the block I'm using, and I'm going to go ahead and trim to make sure that we have a 1/4 inch of seam allowance at each point. So now you'll see each point has a 1/4 inch of seam allowance, and that's the really important thing here, because now we're going to sew our next square around this square, just like this. So we'll begin by sewing 2 opposite edges, and of course, just like we did the first time, you're going to want to match it up and make sure that you have about the same overage on each side so that we have room for the seam allowance. So now both of these 2 seams are sewn, and you'll notice that the points on that first square in a square are now lining up exactly with that next seam. And I pressed them both open. So now we'll do the same thing we did on the first side, where we trim off these dog ears. It's not incredibly essential, but it sure does make it go a little nicer and reduces bulk in those seams. So now we have those edges nice and flat, And we'll go ahead and do the same thing where we sew these two final pieces on with a 1/4" seam allowance and press them open. Here we go, our economy block is complete. You'll see all of these seams have now been pressed open and flat, and we have some nice pretty points where that first square hits the second square. So all of that is wonderful. And now we're gonna just go ahead and trim. We've got some dog ears and it's not completely even. So I'm gonna take my ruler, this one's 8.5 inches, and I will make sure that I have at least a 1/4 inch at each point for seam allowance. So I'll just go ahead and line up the points for the first two sides. And then rotate the block. It's really helpful if you're doing a bunch of these at once to use a rotating cutting mat. So I'll just go ahead and line these next two up. Again, we want a 1/4 inch on overage on all four sides because of seam allowance. And there we go, our economy block is finished. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make an economy quilt block. If you enjoyed this tutorial and want to learn more, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also check out homemademilyjane.com for lots more quilting tips and tricks.